Welcome to this edition of The Soul of Warren County. I'm Mickey Gwynn. My guest today is a native Warren Countian, and as such, he's a Warren County pioneer. But he's also a pioneer in other areas, especially healthcare logistics. He personally cultivated the Chinese market to bring in state-of-the-art supplies and equipment. And he's going to talk to us about some of those ventures and also about his efforts to give back to Warren County and to McMinnville. In the studio, I have the CEO and managing partner of InterMed Resources, Roger Biles.
Well, thank you, Mickey. I appreciate you inviting me on, and I look forward to this. Anything with Warren County, I'm always looking forward to.
Well, I appreciate you coming in. We always start our program out with a little bit of a walk down memory lane. Tell us about some of the early years of Roger Biles.
Well, it all started here. I tell everybody that I meet, especially when I was in college and travels throughout the world that I've gone to, they always notice my accent. Whether we know it or not, we have a very distinct hillbilly southern twangy accent, and I'm very proud of that. But it all started here. I mean, growing up here and trying to follow, when I was a little kid, follow my big brother and you, because it was, I tell you what, one of my memories, you want to talk about memory lane, one of my most fondest memories is when I was a little kid. I was riding my own Robert's back down to your house, and we put a smoke bomb in your window.
I remember that.
and y'all ran out like the house was on fire. And it was, like I said, I was probably 6, 7 years old at that time. And to this day, I still think about that. And it was one of the funniest moments. And of course, another moment was when Robert was going up from your house up the hill and got that bug in his ear. and we had to take him out to the hospital and get it taken out. You would have thought somebody shot him the way he was fluttering. And when he ran in the house, actually, my daddy thought somebody did shoot him. So I have some fond memories of growing up trying to be like you guys, and then growing up going to school here. Some of my best memories are being in school, playing football, playing athletics, and it was really a really good place to grow up. And I really enjoyed everything that happened to me here. I really enjoyed it, and a lot of it is I credit to some of the success I've had in business.
What year football team was it y'all went to? Was it semifinals, quarterfinals?
Semifinals. My junior year, we went to the semifinals of the state, and we actually lost that semifinal game by a field goal. And actually, we were headed down to score, fumbled the ball. Germantown got the ball, got it with no time left, and kicked the field goal, beat us. So yeah, that was a good year for us, and then my senior year we did okay, we did pretty good, but my junior year was the year we almost went to the finals.
After high school, MTSU?
MTSU.
Majoring in?
I had a double major, double minor. Majored in communications and marketing, triple minor actually. Minored in history, English, and political science. And talk about a time that went by. I mean, I actually graduated in 3 years. And the reason is I was going to school during the summer and I went to intersessions, but it was fun. But then the only regret I have is as I looked up and I didn't have a real social life in college, which, you know, I wasn't missing it at the time, but that was a blur. It literally went. It was like it was overnight. So, but it was. I had some fun time up there, but I would always come back home on the weekends.
And after graduation from MTSU, that's sort of when you got into the workforce. Was that with Star Transportation?
That was Star Transportation, 1990. I graduated in '89, and went to work for Star in 1990. I was really lucky being at Star at that time. It was a startup truckload carrier. It only had 30 trucks at the time, and they took a chance on hiring some college graduates for their future management, and it worked out really good. So me and 3 other guys they started us really just threw us into it, like throwing a kid in a swimming pool and letting them swim, and we really grew the company. So basically, we had 30 trucks when I started, and when I left, I'd been promoted to Senior Vice President of Marketing, and we had grown that 36 trucks to, when I left in '99, over 860 trucks over that course of time, and were the biggest truckload carrier in Middle Tennessee at the time. So that was a lot of fun, and of course I was able to get a MBA during that time, and I knew that I was wanting to go into healthcare, and I just changed it at the drop of a dime and took a chance on it. I said, that might make sense later on. Really, I just did it at a whim, but it paid off. But those were some really good times. It got me seasoned in business. It got me really comfortable with speaking in front of large groups. So I really owe a lot to that first job.
You know, it's ironic. I think back, I was, young during the oil embargo,
Right.
during that time. And there was talk back then that the trucking industry was their death, with the high diesel prices,
Right.
and they was trying to transport more goods via train because that was more
right.
economical during the times. And
Yep.
boy, was that ever a farce? Because, what would we do without the logistics in those trucks? And it seemed like it's just steadily growing. Just your example with Star Transportation, it's steadily grown. And I guess, from what I understand, you know more about this than I do, you just can't take every good on a train and back it up to Walmart
can't.
kind of thing. You got to have
Right.
the trucks do that.
Being in logistics for so many years, I learned every aspect because we freighted some stuff. You're going to never, if we turn into a space age, you will never get rid of trucks. And the only way is if they make them all so robotic that you're not going to risk any accidents or liability. But the reason you will never get rid of trucks is simply for the fact that a train can't back up to your house. Train can't back up to Walmart.
Right.
Only a truck can, and you have to have drivers for that. The biggest commodity in trucking and the most valuable commodity is drivers. It's been, when I started to this day, because I deal with it with our warehouse, drivers are hard to find, and believe it or not, you got some drivers, if you just do your job, you can make well over $100,000 a year, but it's just so hard to find really good drivers.
Yeah, I know they were talking on the store the other day about finding drivers, period, and especially certified drivers that can drive like the tanker trucks, and those
That's right.
kind of trucks are hard to find these days.
They are.
It's just interesting that we're talking about logistics right now. And we all know about the cargo ships that on the coast of California. I wanted to bring that up and say, how is that affecting your company?
Well, I tell you what, it's affecting everybody, but there are ways around it. Now, I will tell you this: during COVID, we were able. My experience in traveling to Asia over the years and establishing a base of partners over there. That was one reason we were so successful during COVID, because what was happening is, and this is where experience came in, what was happening, and the reason there was such a shortage of PPE was because when COVID hit, everybody from, you're talking about your big guys like Cardinal and Medline, they all wanted to load up. We all buy products from the same places in Asia.
Right.
But what they were doing, and where they made a mistake was, and what I didn't do, was they all wanted to air freight it. Well, it was such just a clog of air freight. An air freight shipment, and they were ordering truckload shipments, was literally taking 2 months to deliver. That's almost unheard of. And plus you're paying premium. But what I did what I've always been doing when I had my first company, and it worked out. We were using what we call it fast boats. We would take boats out of Taizhou, out of Dongguan and Guangzhou, some of the ports, and we would have them in Long Beach in less than 12 days. And then once we got it there, it was just so easy for us to have teams. I could have it in Tennessee at our warehouse in Murfreesboro from Long Beach in less than 2.5 days. So we cut the time from everybody else, from most everybody else, by almost 60 days in some cases. And that was why we were able to capitalize on a lot of business.
So that experience paid off when
It
things
did.
really got critical with
It did.
PPE and stuff of that nature. So that's good. You know, some people, it's difficult for them to step outside the state. You were in Asia, you were in China.
Yeah.
How did that happen? I mean, I know you talked about healthcare, and you knew healthcare was probably the realm you wanted to get
Right.
into, but you just don't go and get on a plane and say, "Hey, I'm here."
It was all luck, Mickey. It really was. And I was just being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
The way I got into China, it was the opportunity. I was actually at a conference in 1999 out in Las Vegas. It was a trucking conference. And we had a lot of time on our hands, which most of those trucking conference is about 10% conference and 80% having fun. But while everybody else was having fun, just so happened to be Warren Buffett was speaking next door to us to a group of, it was called Entrepreneur Today. And I just stepped in. It was free. I stepped in, and he said something that was really key, because a week prior to me going out there, like I was telling you a few minutes ago, one of the hardest things to get in trucking was drivers. Mm-hmm. We were with one of our recruiters up in New York, because we were trying to recruit drivers from everywhere. And this particular guy, he used to always love to hear me talk. He said, "I've never heard somebody look like you talk like they just walked out of a cornfield." And he said, and we became really good friends. Mm-hmm. And he was an old Jewish New Yorker, which you can imagine his accent.
Right.
But he introduced me to this Chinese gentleman named David Dong. I'll never forget. He had come to New York 10 years prior, had gone to St. John's, got his business degree. But his father was the governor of Sichuan province, which is the largest province in China. When I tell you these numbers, it just blows people. 140 million people lived in Sichuan province at the time. So his job was, as a liaison, was to recruit American companies over to work direct. The WTO, World Trade Organization, had just opened China up. And that meant no more brokers and agents from Hong Kong and Shanghai and San Francisco. They were wanting to work direct. So he was wanting to invite 10 business guys and some politicians on his dime to come meet factories. Mm-hmm. Well, at the time he asked me, Joel, our partner in New York, said, he's offering you a free round trip ticket, first class. At that time, a first class seat to Beijing was almost $20,000. So he was offering 15 of those seats. And I said, I didn't lose anything in China. I'm an old country. What did I lose in China? And I'll never forget talking to my mom, and she said, "People get you in China, won't let you come back home." So I knew I didn't want to go.
Right.
But anyway, a week later at the conference, Warren Buffett said one thing that changed the whole course of my life. He said, if you're an entrepreneur and you get into China now, you can name your ticket to wherever you want to go. He said your revenues will be like an ATM. He said, because no one's there. It was real. He said it's like the gold rush in the late 1800s in the U.S. And I immediately called on my cell phone. And this was before smartphones. And I had to get in a perfect area and call. I said, "Hey, is that trip still available?" And it was, and it changed everything.
Were the people that were in your group that went to China in different industries? It wasn't just healthcare at that point? Okay.
Different industries. Retail. Actually, my first business, even though we were doing a little healthcare, it was actually retail.
Okay.
We actually started retail. My first purchase order, I tell you, I was in China. What made me realize how I knew that I had gotten into something good was we went to this factory called Ching Ching, and they made refrigerators. I had just bought a refrigerator, a really high-end refrigerator in Brentwood, and this was in 2000, early 2000. And I remember at that time I paid almost like $2,000 for this refrigerator, and which I didn't understand why. I was asking, well, why can't we just get a Frigidaire or something? But anyway, it was the exact refrigerator I made, and I asked one of the managers, or through our translator, I saw my refrigerator. I said, how much would that cost me if I bought it straight from the factory? And they said, oh, Mr. Raja, that's very expensive. I said, I know. How much would? Oh, that maybe cost you $60. I was like,
wow.
no, not for the door. I was like, for the whole, yeah, for the whole door. You get this over here, Frigidaire, we get it for you for $22. And I was like, and I was like, really?
So they had that much of a markup.
It wasn't them. I traced it. It went from the factory to an agent in Hong Kong to an agent in San Francisco to another agent and then to the manufacturers. That's how manufacturers were buying stuff. They didn't deal direct with China because China was closed off to most everybody.
Right.
And I said, wow, I knew then I was going to resign from my job at Star and start my own business. And I did. My first purchase order, and I'm gonna let you figure out this number.
Uh-oh, not numbers.
No, you just figure it out in your head. We were over there, me and another gentleman from Star. His brother was a manager of a tour guide down in Florida, down in Miami, Florida, and they were looking for 50cc scooters. He wanted replicas of Vespas. You remember, the ones in Italy,
right?
And he said, if you guys can find one for $1,000, because he was paying $1,600 for them for each one, and he needed 1,000 of them to replace a lot of them around the city what they used them for. And he said, if you can find them for $1,100, I'll buy 1,000 of them. And he didn't think we could do it. This was Tom's brother, the gentleman that went with me.
Right.
So we went to a place, and Chinese name, they try to name it something that sounds good. They call it Good Boy Scooter. So we went to Good Boy Scooter in Taizhou, China. And of course, none of them could speak English, but our translators,
Right.
and we saw exactly what he wanted. So these were replica Vespas, 50cc, and our cost landed was going to be about $70. And I was like, are you sure? I mean, I was so stunned when he told me that. I was like, that can't be right. He said, no, that's right. 70, factory make good profit on that. And this is how out of price everything was. So his brother, Tom's brother, called and said, did y'all find something? And he said, because I got to give a purchase order. So I didn't even have a company set up. I said, what if we can get them to you for $1,000 and save you from, he said, I will buy, and I'll sign a contract to buy 1,000 more next year. And that's what we did. That was my first purchase order. Cost us $70 landed here. We sold 1,000 of them for $1,000. That was my first purchase order. And I came back, resigned my job, and started my first company.
Yeah. So the price he quoted you was the price for the product and shipping it?
Back then.
Oh, wow.
Because I remember to this day, on a 40-foot container, we were able to put 50 of them on a container.
But there's a lot of people probably don't know that there's products that may have an American badge, if you won't own it, and if you don't sort of turn it around and look at the back panel, you don't realize it's actually made in China.
It is.
Yeah.
People get away with that, Mickey. And I'll tell you this. It's Christmas time, and I hear a bunch of, we were on a couples retreat, and all these females talking about Louis Vuitton and all that. This is how you get away. Louis Vuitton is famous for saying, we still make everything in France. Well, I know for a fact, their components, everything is made in China, but they send it broken up, and they can assemble it in France. And and our laws even say the same thing. If we assemble it here, it's made here. So you're right. I mean, at one time, I can tell you, because I was a Walmart vendor for almost 14 years, between 2001 and 2015, 75% of everything you bought in Walmart was made in China.
Yeah. My daughter was telling me about, I think it was it Diane Sawyer that just did a special report. I think she went into someone's home and she looked at all, I guess, of their major products and things they had in the home. Sort of well, let's see how much stuff you have that's actually made in China.
Right.
And when they went through the home, she said they left with just about, I don't know, 2 or 3 items in the whole house. And they didn't know that all these other items were actually made in China. And they brought some things in that were made in America, to try to replenish what they had taken out of the home.
Right.
Of course, the price was a lot higher because of that too. But yeah, I think it's funny how some people just don't know about it. And I guess some of the Chinese products are being sold under their own. Isn't Hisense? Isn't that a Chinese product?
Hisense is electronics. Listen, listen. I'm glad you mentioned that. Hisense was actually one of the first factories we started working with. Hisense actually, to let you know, there are only legitimately probably 6 television manufacturers on the planet. They all interchange. Hisense makes for a lot of different people. A lot TLC. They make for a lot of brands that you used to see here. A lot of the American brands have gone away, but the only difference is Sony, Hisense. Hisense actually is the largest television manufacturer in Asia.
Oh, okay.
You go to any of the airport, it's Hisense, but they help Sony out. They help everybody out. They all help each other out, and that's a little secret that a lot of people don't know. But she's right. Hisense makes about 20 brands of televisions. So,
do you see any issues with such a large dependence on China?
I'll be honest with you, I made a lot of my money off the back of bringing products in from China, but then it starts to sink in. You start realizing, I'll give you one example, and it really hurts us in certain aspects. Of course, you try to figure out other ways to make up from an industry. I'll give you one perfect example. When I was in trucking, we were the #1 trucker for Nike.
Okay.
They used to do all their textiles in Wilmington, North Carolina. They had a factory over there. There was about 60 plants between Virginia and South Carolina that only made Nike products, all textile. When the WTO opened China up and when people could work with them direct, and I saw it firsthand, that 60 plus manufacturers that employed literally hundreds of thousands of Southerners in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia went down to 0 overnight. It was almost overnight.
Right.
Same with the furniture manufacturers. Furniture makers in North Carolina, they used to be very profitable all over the state. There's only maybe 1 or 2. It all went to China, and that's the problem that. After so many years of seeing it, you just say, golly, it's killing our economy, it's killing our workforce. Because all you're bringing in is labor. It's all, to be honest, that's all you're bringing in. You're getting it done a lot cheaper, and I've seen factories. I've been to China over 100 plus times. I've been to over 200 factories, and I would just like for 1 week people who really don't appreciate this country to spend just 2 days in Taizhou, China, to see people working in factories without shoes. The ventilation is horrible. It is, we talk about social media a lot. One of the kind of thrills I would get sometimes when I would take business associates to China, we'd fly into Hong Kong. Hong Kong's it's still free, supposedly, and it always has. I would love when they would bring their teenagers with them and they're doing their Facebook and their Snapchat and all that in Hong Kong. Then when we drive over, because it's only a 45-minute drive to the border, you drive over into Shenzhen, and then all of a sudden their Facebook, it goes black. And they say, hey, Dad, I can't get this. And I would always look back and say, welcome to China.
Yeah.
China doesn't permit that. So yeah, there's part of it really bothers you as an American to see China we helped them grow a middle class in less than 10 years. Keep in mind, they're the only economy on the planet that ever had almost 10 years of 13 to 30% growth in their economy. We're happy to get 6%, 3% sometimes. But and we did that.
Do you think, and this is just your personal opinion, have we gotten to the point to where we're almost dependent and there's no turning back, if you will?
Well, yes and no. There was a time though where we were totally dependent. They owned a lot of our debt. They still do.
Right.
But what really happened was about 5-6 years ago, a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of really big box retailers like Walmart and Dollar General, who was dependent almost 80% for China, said, hey, if we do this, if we put all of our eggs in one basket, what's going to happen if they say, hey, it's time to come and pay the piper? Mm-hmm. So in the last 10 years or so, it's been kind of diverse. Like when we were bringing our PPE in, we were working in countries like Thailand, Singapore, the Philippines, and we had to diverse it out. It's gotten a little bit better, but for the most part, Mickey, we still depend way, way too much on China. Yeah. It's not if, it's still there. It's almost like a crack addict. I hate to say it, and a lot of businesses have gotten to that point where they depend on those prices.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, let's move away from all the money and issues with China and all. I really wanted to highlight your desires to give back. And you talked about how much you look back on growing up in McMinnville and Warren County. And I know you've made a very large donation to the Black History Museum of Warren County. You donated the COVID tunnels to the city and all. What motivates you to want to give back?
Listen, growing up in our families, our moms and dads, we were always at church. And I know my mama and daddy always told me, you always want to give back. If God's been good enough for you, and He has, God's blessed me, Mickey, way beyond anything I feel like I could ever repay.
Right.
And I feel like I have to give back, not just to my home county, but to everything I do, because He has blessed us so much. But one reason is because I feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do if I don't give back, especially to the hometown that raised you, to the hometown you were raised in. And it was my pleasure. I think with the museum, I didn't even hesitate. I wanted to participate that because of growing up here. I want people to know about this. And you can't help but feel that way if you have the means to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we also paid back during COVID. There was a lot of people lost their jobs. And one of the things that we're most proudest of is we hired about 75 people in our warehouse in Murfreesboro. We were bringing in 20 to 30 containers a week. It was just so crazy. And we hired about 76 people that had lost their jobs. Some were friends, some were my wife's friends. And we paid them $25 an hour.
Wow.
And all they were doing is exchanging product in boxes, reboxing product. We paid them $25 an hour. They worked 8 hours a day. And we paid them cash money at the end of each day. So that made us feel good because a lot of people can pay their mortgage. They could pay their car payments. They could help their kids go to school. And that made me feel good. And then to give back to McMinnville, the tunnels, we were selling those tunnels. We had been so blessed. We sold probably 20,000 of those tunnels at a price of almost $15,000 to $25,000 each, all over the world.
Right.
And they were really helping out people, their facial recognition, take your temperature. And if I could give those back to my county and let them benefit off of that and help the people here, it was my pleasure.
Well, it's good to hear that. I mean, we get so caught up sometimes in the bottom line, the profit margins and things of that nature. It's good to know that your company and you in particular have a mindset of wanting to give back.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I'm glad that you and your company did that. I'm glad that we can go out on that note.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, I appreciate all the talk about the ventures and logistics and China and all those kind of things. But it's also good to hear that you're giving back too. I know, being a board member of the Black History Museum, I really appreciate your donation.
Well, we want to do it every year. So we're here, and as long as Warren County's going to be here, we're going to always give back.
Appreciate that. And I appreciate you coming in today, Roger.
Hey, it was my pleasure. I couldn't wait to I dropped my whole schedule today just to be up here.
Well, I appreciate that. It was nice listening to your ventures, but also it was nice to hear how your company are giving back to Warren County and McMinnville. And I can see you got your company poised for the future.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure y'all are going to be doing great things.
We are. And you know, like I said, we even sell to all the hospitals and health facilities here.
Yeah.
So, like I said, as long as we can give back, we're always going to give back. That's our priority every year.
That's good. That's good to hear.
But thanks for having me come by. It was my pleasure, and I'll come by anytime.
All right, you got an open invitation.
All right.
All right. Thanks again.
All right.
And thank you for watching today. I'm Mickey Gwynn, and please join us for the next episode of The Soul of Warren County. Until then, make every day a great day.